Hi, this is David Heine, Aspect Art. Today we're again in that quaint village of Laren, just outside of Amsterdam, at the Singermuseum, where they've mounted another major winter exhibition. This time it's a relatively obscure painter, Adriaan Lubbers, who lived and worked around Laren. He painted in a kind of geometric, almost cubist style, influenced by Leo Gestel, who was a friend of his, lived also here in Laren. With us today is Ann Blokland, who's going to explain some of the finer points of Lubbers' paintings, what his influences were, and why he should and does deserve a second look. Lubbers went to New York and was greatly influenced there, some even say by Mondrian. We'll find out from Ann whether that's in fact true. So join us now at the Singermuseum for Adriaan Lubbers. Ann, could you tell me who was Lubbers?
Adriaan Lubbers was born in Amsterdam from a well-to-do family, and as a youngster he really wanted to be an artist, but his father didn't really approve, so he had a more practical schooling as a technical engineer. But he was very adventurous, so he started traveling at a young age, and decided around 1920 that he really wanted to become an artist, and through his friend, the painter Leo Gestel, he went to Bergen, which is an artist village in the north of Holland, and that's where his career as an artist started. But he still really liked to travel, so he went to Dresden in Germany, to Paris, and finally to New York.
Well, some of his paintings actually reflect kind of a technical inclination, don't they? Could you tell us a little about his style, what he did?
Yes, he was really focused on architecture because of his studies, and he also liked strong lines, the perspective, so he always painted the architecture in the landscape, where other artists would portray persons in the landscape. And he developed a style that could range from really thick paint to very smooth surfaces, but was always a little bit a dark palette. So dark colors, lots of gray and dark red. So that's a little bit of his style.
It seems that New York City had a big influence on Lubbers. Did he spend much time there, and what was he doing there?
He first visited New York in 1916 and was overpowered by the architecture and the building of skyscrapers. And he visited New York several times and stayed there in 1926 until 1928, a little bit longer, and did a lot of drawings, graphics there. But he never forgot New York when he was in Europe, so he painted the city from his memory and from his drawings and sketchings. So when he was in Paris, he would paint New York. When he was in Laren, he would paint New York again, always in nice varieties.
As you say, he was a local painter, wasn't he? I mean, when he came back to Holland, he more or less settled in the Laren area.
Yes, he returned to Holland in 1932 and stayed in Laren. It was quite nice that he would pick out a small village like that while he was so impressed by the big city. But his friend Leo Gestel lived here, and Laren had a good reputation as an artist village. So yeah, he was a well-known person here in the village. He owned a big Buick convertible, so he was the Dutch American, they called him. So he was well known in the village.
Now, towards the latter portion of his career, he seemed his palette lightened up. He painted very bright, geometric forms. Was he influenced by Mondrian?
No, he had a great friendship with Mondrian when he was in Paris, and later the critics suggested that it was the influence of Mondrian in these abstract paintings. But actually, the decorative patterns of Lubbers, which were again New York, had nothing to do with Mondrian's vision on art. He had very particular ideas about art, and Lubbers wasn't a man of the theory. He really painted from his feelings. So there's no influence there for me.
Lubbers actually stopped painting altogether for a while, but again, New York City brought him back to his art.
In the beginning of the 1950s, Lubbers was very much occupied with other things, like Art and Industry, a company that was an intermediary between artists and companies. But they didn't really approve of Lubbers' style. He was a director there, so he got fired in 1952. And he hadn't painted for a very long time, and he was kind of depressed because of these problems he had. And then the story goes that one night in Laren, while having a little drink, his daughter put on a record of Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. And Lubbers got totally inspired and said, that is New York. Rhapsody in Blue is New York. I'm going to paint again. And in just 1 year, a lot of new paintings came about in very strong, bright colors and geometrical forms. And he used the paintings from New York from the 1930s again. And this is the result.
And could you tell me, Laren was always known as an artist colony, more or less, and there was a lot of artists here, including Jan Slouters. Was there any influence by Slouters or the group of Laren artists on Lubbers that is discernible?
Well, actually, around the 1930s and 40s, Laren was well known as an artist village, but more because of the individual artists. So before that time there was a real Laren school, but after that there were more individual painters, so they didn't really influence each other anymore. They just hang out in the local hotel, but not artistically, no.
When I think of Lubbers, I don't think of anything. To be honest with you, I didn't know about him as a painter until you mounted this exhibition. How does he rate as an overall painter, do you think?
Well, of course, the difficulty for Lubbers is his friendship with well-known artists like Mondrian and Gestel, so he's always the less well-known artist. But for several years he has been well known within a small group of art collectors and art dealers, and this presentation is really meant to making more well known with the public at large.
Als je kunt rekenen, haal je voordeel bij PC OK. Utrechtse straat 70.